getting old. Whoa. Okay. First off, I should obviously say a long time since a new video. A really long time. But obviously it's a special occasion. Resident Evil 4, the remake, just came out in the last, 2 weeks? I have been playing it non-stop since it came out. So, because I've finally finished it, I'm replaying it. I'm still enjoying the hell out of it. I figured, since I made I think it was 2 years ago, when the remake was announced, that I came out with a hopes and fears video on Resident Evil 4, the remake. I had to rewatch it today because I don't even remember what I said in that video. Funny thing is, a lot of things came to pass that I hoped for in the video, and also things happened that I feared for the remake happened in the game as well. So it is kind of funny, but we're gonna go over it. I made a huge list of notes today because I feel like it's important to follow this up, because Resident Evil 4, I've talked about it before. Obviously, I have the chainsaw controller. You've seen me do streams with the chainsaw controller. I love Resident Evil 4. I love the series. And I feel like out of the 3 remakes that we've got so far, Resident Evil 2, 3, Nemesis, and Resident Evil 4, I feel like this is the best one. And the reason why I feel like this is the best one is because, well, there's a lot of reasons. First is the gameplay is solid. If you were on the fence wondering if this game was any good or whether you should pay the full price to pick it up, I would say do it. The gameplay is solid. If it wasn't solid, this would be a completely different video. I'd be a lot more pissed off. And I think you can tell by my tone that I'm not like pissed off with this game. So that's a positive side. There were massive improvements since the original, such as being able to move while you shoot your gun. You're not in. If you played the original Resident Evil 4 from 2004 or 5, yeah, remember that you could only stop, aim your gun, still very much like the tank controls from Resident Evil 2, where you're just aiming up and down like this. There wasn't a whole lot of movement or freedom of movement when you're aiming, let alone being able to dodge things or get out of the way or continue to fire as you're walking. So thank God that they actually had the foresight to come to the modern era of gaming, and letting Leon actually move and aim and shoot. So that's really good. Exploration. Now, Resident Evil 4, just like all Resident Evil games, traditionally are very linear. I think that's still the case today. Resident Evil 7, while you could explore, it was linear. Resident Evil 8 opened it up a little bit more. Still linear, but there were still lots of areas off the beaten path for you to explore if you wanted to. It wasn't like a force in your face, nor was it obvious that you could go explore certain areas again. The same thing happened in this version of Resident Evil 4, is it was very much the Resident Evil 8 model, which I enjoyed. I talked about in my Resident Evil 8 review video that your exploration is met with reward. Now, when I say exploration, like I said, it is linear, but it gives you objectives to go back to certain areas of the map to kill legendary monsters, and also just possibly go back and open chests now that you have certain keys and things like that. So your exploration is met with reward, but there's also risk involved. And what do I mean by that is because when you go back to these certain areas, even though you think it's all cleared out, there will be monsters and things like that waiting for you when you get there. Could be more powerful than you expect. Luckily, I wasn't too overwhelmed by the legendary monster things, like the knight in the castle. I thought the Knight in the Castle was gonna like really stomp my ass and I'd probably die a few times. But no, I took care of the Knight in the Castle, no problem. That's another thing with the monsters and the bosses in this remake. It's almost exactly the same as far as pattern memorization. All the bosses and monsters kind of have like a certain pattern. They do it over and over again. You memorize it real fast, and you're golden. Anyway, that's for later. I'm going to talk about that later. What else was I talking about? Like a remake, the way I feel like remakes should be, is that the story was new, but it was also really the same. So I think it goes to show that this remake proves that the internet, when it comes to speculation on video game rumors and people trying to present them as facts, just goes to show that the internet knows not what the fuck they're talking about once again. I can't tell you how long in the last 2 years since the remake was announced, how many rumors you saw going around on Reddit, how many rumors you saw going around on Twitter that there was going to be Krauser cut out of the game, that the island wasn't going to be in the game, the cave trolls weren't going to be in the game, Ada might not be in the game, or that or that Resident Evil 4 might go woke, and what's her face, Ashley is going to be the one saving Leon this time. None of that was true. In fact, all of the things that I expected to not be in the game were in the game. Krauser was there. The minecart part that I said in my Resident Evil 4 Hopes and Fears video, the part that I was like, I could do without it, was in the game. And I thought it was a lot more fun this time around than it was before. So it just goes to show that the internet knows not what the fuck they're talking about once again. And you shouldn't believe, when you were reading all these things up to the release of the game, at least for the last couple years, I don't know why Pyramid Head's not in this video. He should be, because he's so cool. Maybe for the Silent Hill remake, 2 remake. There was just so many rumors up to the release that people were presenting as facts that weren't going to be in the game, which is completely false. So, luckily for me, I wasn't too shocked, but I was also very happy to see a lot of the things that people were like, it's for sure not going to be there. It definitely was there. That makes me happy. What I also liked a lot for this remake is that there was homage to areas of the original Resident Evil 4 that were in the remake, but because they weren't spots being actively used, they were still there and you could still see them, or there was like a nod to them, like you could see it somewhere off in the corner, or you could actually walk right next to it. And though it's not there for you to actively participate in, it's there, hinting that we get it. We know you guys like this part. It's an iconic area from the game. So here it is. You may not get to interact with it, but here it is. I mean, was I sad to see that the floating maze that Sadler had with the giant like centaur fucking Las Plagas monster thing was gone? Sure, because that part is so fucking weird. When you think about it, when you're playing the original Resident Evil 4, that whole part, that guardian whatever the fuck that thing was, in the floating maze thing, yeah, it made no sense. So it's sad to see it go, because I love how cheesy and stupid it is. It's kind of like the whole point of Resident Evil 4. It's almost just as cheesy, but not cheesy enough to be Code Veronica. Anyway, I'm just side tangent. This is why I took so many notes, because there was so much stuff running through my mind as I was playing the game and replaying it. Notes are important. The guns this time. The guns all felt good. All of them that I was able to buy, something that we'll touch upon later on in my negative nitpicks of the remake. All the guns felt good. But the funny thing is that some of them didn't feel as OP as as they were in the remake. Like or in the original. In the original, you get a few upgrades to the TMP and you feel like almost like a walking god, because the TMP with the stock, I mean, at that point, yeah, the Punisher's great, the Matilda's great, but if you have the TMP and you start upgrading that, you can get rid of all handguns altogether, because that thing will just waste people. You can just mow people down. And if you know the game by heart, you know capping people in the knees is the way to go. And then just mowing them down in the face, especially with the TMP. The TMP this time around was definitely not my go-to gun to get out of scenarios. Shotguns are still always the way to go, it seems like. I mean, shotguns are pretty fucking awesome. But the TMP was like an OP gun. It definitely could have been. Yellow herbs. Yellow herbs this time, I felt like you actually had to go find. They weren't just kind of given to you at the start of every chapter like they were in the original, which I enjoy. Especially since if you didn't realize this, if you've only played the remake and you didn't really realize what the yellow herbs did up to this point, when you mix the yellow herbs with the green herbs and the red herbs, they extend Leon's health bar. What I also liked is that you didn't have to extend Ashley's health bar, because that was a giant waste of resources, in my opinion, in the original. Ashley in the original, and pretty much in this one, is kind of a useless character. And the only thing that happens to her is she gets picked up all the time and screams for help. That still didn't really change that much in this one. But whatever, it's Ashley. So yeah, not having to extend her health bar because she just gets fucked up all the time. I liked that a lot. The fact that she gets knocked down and you have the opportunity to save her. But for me, I didn't really take advantage of saving her all too much. I kind of used her as a crutch. So whenever she would get knocked down, I never had a point where the enemies killed her while she was knocked down. I would just use that to buy more time, because it would take them time to pick her back up and throw them on the shoulder. So yeah, anyway, the yellow herbs, I like that they're just not handed to you at the beginning of every chapter, at the end of every chapter anymore. You have to go find them. That, I don't know, that's my OCD, wanting to find all the treasure part of my brain. Some people might not like that. The characters this time felt a little more fleshed out, obviously, than they did in the remake. They got a little bit more dialogue, a little bit more insight. I'm not going to say a lot. You got a little bit more insight. If you'd never seen all of the Resident Evil lore games or movies, the animated movies that came out, you wouldn't know really who fucking Krauser was. Or if you didn't play Resident Evil 2 and you never watched any of the animated movies or anything else like that, you wouldn't know who Ada was. You wouldn't know why it was so important or why it was such a huge deal to see Ada Wong again in this village, or why it was so like mind-blowing that she was taking orders from Wesker the entire time of the game. So things were a little more fleshed out with characters this time. Sadler was really cool. I really liked Sadler's parts. Salazar was fucking incredible looking, and he was just as cheese-filled and at the same time more serious. You could take him a little more serious this time around. He wasn't just some like pale midget that made one-liners just like Leon this time around, which was really cool. Ashley. Okay, let's talk about Ashley. Ashley was not as annoying as she was in the original. She didn't have that super high-pitched, whiny voice. Granted, I felt like I heard her whining a lot in the game. And especially if you start running around with Ashley, I don't know about you, but I have never heard a woman running around for like a 0.5 seconds where they sound like they're literally dying of asphyxiation like Ashley does when you start running around with her. That was actually pretty annoying to me, to have her around you and as soon as you stop running you're hearing for 5 seconds. It can be me running from the end of this table to this end of this table and she'd be panting like I just had her do a Forrest Gump marathon across the 50 states. The prizes in the shooting gallery this time around. Now, I did love the shooting gallery in the original, but we all know that the shooting gallery in the original, you get the little pop prizes, and they did nothing. And in the Xbox 360 PlayStation 3 version, when they came out with the achievements, right? Even the achievements made fun of the pop figure things. I think the achievement was called "What are they worth?" or like "What's the point?" or something like that. So to this time around, to get them, and you can hang them on your case, and they give you more percentages of finding more handgun bullets, or higher percentages of finding craftable ammo, or higher percentages of finding healing items. I felt like that was really cool. That was smart, and I like that they dangle on your little case, because I mean, it fits Resident Evil 4 perfectly. Enemy variation. I've talked about this before with Resident Evil 4. Enemy variation in the original was very lackluster. By the time you get to the island, you feel like you're fighting the same fucking villagers, the same fucking townspeople, the same chainsaw guys, and the same islanders just reskinned that were villagers, except for the guy that looked like he was from the Raiders. He had the eyepiece and the giant hammer. A little bit more enemy variation in the remake, which I appreciated. Granted, you're still gonna see the same old granny with the pitchfork running at you probably a million fucking times in the remake. And, well, there's nothing you can do about that. The regenerators in this one, I thought were well done. They seemed just as scary and freaky as they did in the original to me. The fact that now when they blow up, projectiles from their body can still hurt you even though they're dead. The scope to kill the parasites and stuff like that, I thought still worked exactly the same. It might have been a little harder this time around because the regenerators actually kind of moved in like this unpredictable fashion, unlike the other one where they just kind of walked. This time they run, they slither around and shit like that. So I have no problem with that. Okay. Now is where I get to the nitpicks of the negative things that I didn't enjoy about the remake. Let's go to number one. More backstory for the characters. Now, I just praised the thing, giving us a little more insight on the characters, but at the same time, I thought for sure in the remake that there was going to be more light shed upon Sadler, more light definitely shined upon Krauser, and definitely more light shined upon Wesker, and what the fuck Wesker's deal was with this whole village scenario, and his deal with Sadler, and everything like that, because in the original of Resident Evil 4, you got to take in consideration the time period we lived in that time. Basically, Sadler's whole thing with kidnapping Ashley and sending her back with Las Plagas was an act of terrorism. And I don't know if my video could get blocked for even saying that word nowadays on YouTube, but that was like Sadler's whole plot. He just wanted to commit terrorism. I don't know. I thought there might have been, because Resident Evil 8 had already come out and Resident Evil 8 established, even though I've already said all my pieces about how Resident Evil 8 isn't really Resident Evil to begin with, and 7. I thought they would have had some sort of nod to Resident Evil 8 with Mother Miranda, just because it seems like they take place around in the same areas. I don't know. Yeah, so more character development was something that I wanted. And granted, you got to take in consideration, a lot of people these days may just be buying Resident Evil 4, the remake, and playing it for the first time. They have no idea what Resident Evil is. Maybe they've only played a couple of the games, whatever. Never saw any of the animated movies. So they're not going to know who Krauser is. They're not going to know anything about Las Plagas or Ada Wong or any of these characters. So I feel like more explanation and more backstory, and not having to read a million journals and pay attention to them in detail for new players, I just don't feel like that was the way to go. I feel like more cutscenes or something to establish more backstory would have been a cool thing, which I would have wanted. Okay, that's number one. The voices, the voice acting in the game. I don't even know where to start here. Who do I start with? The Merchant. The Merchant, the most, I think, iconic character of Resident Evil 4. The one that I imitate the most, I think most people imitate the most. If you've seen me on streams before, I imitate the Merchant all the time. What are you buying? What are you selling? Ah, I'll buy it at a high price. And the Merchant in this one sounded like a fucking cheap flea market knockoff version of the Merchant, in my opinion. His voice was not at all gravelly. He almost sounded to me like, what's his name? Fucking, the guy from Mortal Kombat with the red eye. Fuck, Kano? Or no, not Kano. Is it Kano? Shit, I don't fucking remember. But that's who he sounds like. He sounds like the Australian one, the Australian guy from Mortal Kombat the movie, more than he does sound like the Merchant from Resident Evil 4. So that was a huge problem for me. And that his dialogue options were so limited that by the time you hit less than halfway through the game, you've heard every single line of dialogue that the Merchant has over and over and over again. So that really bugged me, especially because we came off such a high note with the Merchant from Resident Evil 8 and the fact that they're tied together. I mean, the Merchant in Resident Evil 8 makes sure to tell you that he knows the Merchant in Resident Evil 4. He gives you the line, "What are you buying?" kind of line. So the fact that the Merchant's so popular, you would think that his dialogue would be a little bit more vast than just saying, "Gun rhymes with fun for a reason, stranger." Just too stupid and too often. I mean, I maybe got like a slight chuckle the first time I heard that. Like pity chuckle. But not after the 100th time me hearing that. Krauser. Krauser really shocked me of how he sounded in the game. If you remember Krauser from the original, Krauser sounded like an Eddie Brock character mixed with fucking Commando, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's Eddie Brock, the guy that's Venom. And anyway, he sounded like that. He's like, "Now die, comrade. Do you remember, comrade? It's time for you to die, for Umbrella's sake." And in this one, he sounds more like Michael Biehn from The Abyss. And he kind of looks like Michael Biehn. I was like, I looked it up. It's not Michael Biehn that does the face model or character acting for it. But the whole time I was looking at Krauser, I didn't see Krauser. I saw Michael Biehn. It was like Michael Biehn from The Rock mixed with Michael Biehn from The Abyss. Like at one point he'd be talking like patriotic, and at another point he's talking like an insane person willing to blow up everyone because there's aliens made out of water. Fuck. Okay, there also was not enough mention about Umbrella or Raccoon City, the incident that happened in Raccoon City, except for Leon's opening dialogue. Now, I get this is Resident Evil 4, but we also got to remember that Resident Evil 4 is the first time that we saw Leon again since Resident Evil 2, as well as Ada. So we got to, I felt like there should have been a little bit more expansion on that, especially in the original. Krauser brings up that he's working for Umbrella, like, briefly, and Leon catches it, but there's never really any explanation besides until you find out that Ada's working with Wesker, and then Umbrella's still around. So I felt like there should have been more buildup on that. Just even if it was a little bit more. Just something. But there wasn't. The game AI. I don't think Resident Evil 4's game AI from the original to now changed at all. So what I mean by that is you will find yourself, I don't care where you are in the game, at any part in the game, you'll be walking around with a fucking rocket launcher or the TMP or the riot shotgun or something, and you just killed about 20 villagers. All with pitchforks, knives. Some of them don't even have weapons. They're just using their fists and punching you and shit like that. And they're just trampling over their dead comrades and be like, I'm the one that's gonna stop him! Ah! And just goes for it and runs head on into you, and then you just blow them away. That hasn't changed at all from the original to now. They still do that. And the AI doesn't really show any ability to take cover, to maybe move out of the way. Like, they still do this thing where they hunch over and go like that every once in a while. And normally it's only the ones with the Molotovs or the TNT. Everyone else just dives right in. Sometimes they'll even stand in a line for you and you can just brrrr, and that's it. So the AI hasn't changed at all. So while the game can try to overwhelm you with numbers, it's so easily beatable because you can basically force the AI into a choke point and just take them all out. Especially if you have the riot shotgun maximized. Anyway, that's the AI. The AI is not good. You would think too, for an AI, despite these villagers having parasites in their head, right? They're still caring about their everyday tasks. They can shit on the toilet. This time around, we saw in that one house, if you've ever seen me on stream, or if you've ever seen this house before in the original, there's a house where a villager is taking a shit, and there's only a urinal in the bathroom. They changed it this time around, where he's actually sitting on the toilet taking a shit. If they can still do all of that, then why do they have no common sense to try to, like, take cover? Especially when there's a guy running around with an assault rifle and just mowing down everyone in the town. I don't know. Here we go. Some of the levels are actually stacked against you as the player, and they work in the computer's favor. So what I mean by this is that some of the levels are not optimized very well. And what I mean is you are, say, running up before the part with the elevator, you know what I mean? And the arrow guys, the guys with the crossbows and shit, are shooting at you. They're shooting at you, it looks like clear line of sight. You should be able to take the same shot and shoot them. I've had guys' heads perfectly in the scope, dead center, shoot them, and be blocked by an invisible wall. But yet when they shoot arrows at me, it goes through that invisible wall and will try to hit me, or it does hit me. So that would happen more time. It wouldn't happen a lot, but it happened more times than I want to admit, because like I said, it would be clear line of shot. No excuses for me to ever miss. And there's an invisible wall. That I did not like. Especially for your first playthrough, when they make sure that rifle ammo and shit like that is extremely scarce. And if you ever missed or you got that invisible wall thing, you'd be very pissed off. So, now, we're going to get into my biggest gripe of the entire game. Is the knife and the armor. Why is there knife repair and armor repair in this game? This is Resident Evil. This isn't an RPG. The most RPG element of this game that there ever should be is you maximizing your time trying to organize your briefcase with all your shit in it. The auto organizer thing is a nice touch every once in a while, but in reality the auto organizer thing fucking like organize shit so fucking fucked up that you can't fit an egg in one slot for some reason. So I don't trust, I didn't use it very much and I don't trust it. But that should be the only RPG element in Resident Evil 4. Why the fuck is there a knife? Why can the fucking knife break? Especially when a knife is like a key thing that Leon talks about, Krauser talks about. I mean, when he goes to attack Ada, try using knives next time. They're better for close encounters. Even Wesker says it. And they talk about their knives. And they fight with their knives. So why is it that your knife can break so much? And why is it that when you get a permanent item, such as the body armor, why the fuck does it break within like 5 seconds? Would it make the game too fucking easy? Aside from you always having handgun bullets? Aside from you always finding health, aside from you being able to literally, essentially walk around the village for like 20 minutes until all the hens and chickens lay fucking eggs, shit them out, and then you have like unlimited healing items for the longest amount of time. So why is it that when you use the knife, a key item in the game, it breaks? If that's the case, if you're going to put RPG elements like that, like it's Fallout 3, which I would expect, why would you put that in Resident Evil and not make it equated across the board for everything? How come I can use my handgun the entire time and it doesn't break down? How come I can only use a rocket launcher once then? How come I can't find ammo for the rocket launcher? I should only have to buy the chassis one time then. Right? So that was a huge gripe for me because I use the knife all the time in Resident Evil 4, the original. I mean, it really is your best asset in the entire game. I've killed Krauser with it. I've killed Salazar with it. I've killed Sadler with it. I've killed the fucking general, what, I always forget his fucking name. The guy that looks like Undertaker mixed with a Mr. X. The knife is your best asset. I upgraded it all the way, thinking that the exclusive perk for the knife, that they were trying to hide it behind like some paywall of at the merchant, is that it will never break eventually. Nope, I was wrong. Get Krauser's knife. When you finally get Krauser's knife, after you kill him, I'm like, okay, finally, I'm going to have a good knife that's not going to break. Nope. Krauser's knife, I upgraded it all the way. It breaks just as often, just as much, as the regular knife did. I don't even know if it does any more damage than the other knife. When you compare the two, it's like 0.025 or 0.5 damage percentile that goes up. So yeah, that I really didn't appreciate, nor did I like, especially because when you go to get the knife repaired, it's like $5,000, and then when you go get the body armor repaired, it's like 10. And this game highly relies on the money situation with the merchant, like heavily relies on it. And I think the only reason that exists is to make sure that you're not going to buy all the upgrades for the weapons right away when you could. But there are ways around that. For some reason, I was running into more people having coins drop out of their ass when I killed them than I did with ammo. Through my entire first playthrough. People were shitting out money left and right. More than fucking Sonic when he gets hurt in a Sonic game. So instead of making me have an extra layer of padding to try to get me to not have resources quick enough or not be able to just beat the shit out of the game the way God intended. Don't add a stupid RPG element that was never in a Resident Evil game before to begin with. This is the first time I've ever seen something like that in a Resident Evil game. And it's stupid. I really didn't like it. I really hate having to go to the merchant to have the fucking knife repaired. And it also is defeating. It's like self defeating for the game to even let the knife get damaged as much as it does, or broken as much as it does, because it supplies you with so many kitchen knives and boot knives that even when the regular knife does break, the kitchen knives and boot knives work exactly the same. They work exactly the same as the regular knife. You can have Sadler fucking throw his spear tentacle at you and block it with a fucking kitchen knife, just like you could with the regular knife. It might break faster, maybe in 2 hits or whatever, but what is the point? Because they give you so goddamn many of them. And also, why can't I put, if they gave you a storage container in this game, they did, why can't I put everything that I have in my inventory in the storage container if I want to? Why is it only weapons I can put in there and health sprays? Why can't I put herbs in there? Why can't I put ammo in there? I just don't understand. It's a weird thing. Weird. I did not like that at all. Not having separate ways or assignment Ada. So in my Resident Evil video, Resident Evil 4 Hopes and Fears video, I talk about how assignment Ada and separate ways needs to be in the game right after you beat it. It has to be there. And it's not. There's nothing besides hardcore mode and professional mode. There's no mercenaries mode, no assignment Ada, no separate ways. And I get it. Capcom said they're gonna come out with DLCs later on this year or whatever for Resident Evil 4. I don't want to have to pay $20 to play assignment Ada or separate ways, or $20 for a mercenaries mode. What also doesn't make sense to me why mercenaries mode isn't in there is because all the character models are already in the game. All of them are in the game already. So why does it not exist? There was a mercenaries mode at the end of Resident Evil 8. So why is it not in Resident Evil 4 that invented mercenaries mode? I don't know. Separate ways, I feel like, is a huge disappointment, because it gives you Ada Wong's whole backstory, or not backstory, but story as Leon's story is going on. You see all the things that Ada's doing as well, especially all the things behind the scenes that she might be helping Leon with that he has no idea. Just a huge missed opportunity, in my opinion. So, yeah, anyway, instead of making a full-fledged review, I just took a lot of notes and thought I would talk about it, especially since I haven't made a video in like 6 months or something like that, especially when it comes to talking about a game. I love Resident Evil 4. The remake was really, really good, in my opinion. If you didn't buy it, or you're on the fence of buying it, buy it. I don't regret buying it. I'm still playing it still. I need to get through professional mode. I want the fucking plasma rifle. So, yeah, go buy the game. I hope you guys enjoy this very long discussion, final thoughts video on the Resident Evil 4 remake. I know things around me don't look the same, but we can talk about that in another video. And Hope you guys enjoyed this. This is Forrest. This is Retro or Die. And if you enjoyed what you saw, subscribe. And I will see you on the next game review.